And a very warm welcome. You're joining us here at Hyde Park on Derana 24. Sri Lanka plans to attract as much as 5 million tourists to the country by 2030. Is this Sri Lanka's potential? How far can we go? Our highest all-time high was before the Easter attacks, when Sri Lanka attracted 2.8 million tourists to the island. And now where do we stand? How much work does the government have to do, and how much of it should be borne by the stakeholders of the industry? To discuss all this, I've invited to our studios an expert in tourism, in the country's economy, as well as someone who's very passionate about empowering women and small and medium enterprises in the country. May I warmly welcome Shiromal Cooray.
Thank you, Indeewari.
Mrs. Cooray, an expert in tourism, a major stakeholder in the tourism industry. You talk about the economy and also very passionate about women empowerment. Let us go down memory lane to start off about your journey, where you started and why you speak so much about women. We understand it's important to discuss about it, but at the helm of where you are, and you have the opportunity to create opportunities for women as well. But why is it that you talk about these challenges? Are we far beyond or far behind?
You've asked me a lot of questions.
Yes. Let's start off with you first.
Okay. So I'm an accountant by profession, and I was working in an advertising company before until I was a whistleblower and I was asked to leave the company. So when I was at home, my dad said, you know, why don't you join one of the companies? Because I had no intention of joining him, joining the family business. So I joined the travel company and I loved it. So since then I've been there. So that's how I got into the business, and I like that. So to answer your question about women, because being a woman, and I know how hard it is in the industry. Actually, my mom, when I was pregnant, my mom was saying she's praying that I have a son. And I couldn't understand why. I said, it doesn't matter to me. She said, no, it's quite tough being a woman, and it'll be much easier if you have a boy. Now, after so many years, I understand what she meant, because it's not easy being a woman, and not easy being a single mother or even just a single lady, you know. So there are lots of things that we can talk about.
Do you think your mother's perception would have changed in the current context?
I think it's changing. It's not 100% change, it is changing, and I see a lot of positives happening. But maybe 30 years ago, that was the situation. So women, as somebody was saying, about 50% of our population is women. And it's a pity that we don't harness their abilities. So there is this, it's a debate. Should women take care of kids and stay at home, or should women come into the into production work? So it's a tough call, and I would say a woman has a choice to make that choice. She has the privilege of making a choice. If she wishes to have a family and work, she can do it. It's tough, but she can still do it, provided she has all the support needed. But she also has the luxury of staying at home and being a wife and mother. So those are the advantages of being a woman, I would say.
But I'm curious and interested to know how you got into tourism. Not many women are involved in the tourism business, tourism industry itself.
Yeah, so I was lucky, as I said, it's a family business, and my dad gave me the opportunity to get into the business, and I have a brother, and he supported me throughout my career. So because of that, I had no issues as such. But I saw along the way the impediments that women have, which I was shielded or kind of buffeted because of my family background. So that is how, but once I got into tourism, I loved it, and I really love it, because see, the advantage is we are selling an authentic product. Sri Lanka is such a beautiful country, and it gives me so much pleasure to be able to talk about it and to spread the knowledge to the foreign people and get them to come here and enjoy the benefits. So it is amazing. I love it.
Are you involved in the entire process? Have you been involved in the process, or have you sort of like had experience in all segments of the industry?
Yes, so I started being a manager in a hotel in Negombo, so I have a bit of experience there. And then now I'm more involved in the our travel company. So from the time of curating the experiences, of picking people up from the airport, making all the arrangements, yes, I mean, it's an amazing experience, and I love it.
How long has it been since?
Oh, it's since about now 35 years. It's a long time.
Over 3 decades.
Yes.
How would you assess Sri Lanka tourism development?
It has developed quite a bit. When I joined it, it was more beach destination, so what they call the sun, sea and sand. But over the years, it has developed into more around tour, because we have so much to offer. Our country is so much blessed with so much biodiversity. So it has now moved into a round tour destination. There are so many experiences that we offer with the local communities, and we are showcasing, I mean, whether it's wildlife. I mean, we have the largest sea mammal and the land, So there are so many things that we have. So, and it has evolved from, as I said, people just coming in to lounge on the beach, to going around, experiencing the beauty, and also the warmth and the hospitality of the Sri Lankan people. That is something that a lot of people are now experiencing and enjoying it.
But I like to maybe speak further about these 3 decades or more that you've been involved. We've seen our tourism taglines change a number of times, and maybe tourism policy change, or do we have a policy on paper or not? I think these are things we have to talk about. But currently, where we are today, when you look back and now, do you think we could have done a little more or much more to take the benefits of the expanding travel tourism industry?
Sure, we could have always done better, and there are lots of times we have missed opportunities. But having said that, we haven't done too bad also, because we've had constant issues. We come up and then something happens and we go down. So having to raise our heads up, and a lot of issues, financial issues the industry has had to grapple with, lots of changes, as you said, in policy, with the constant changing of governments, and the people, the bureaucrats change. So along with it, including the tagline, everything changes. So we haven't had a consistent policy or a consistent marketing campaign for the last maybe 15 years. So those are the impediments, and you would ask, so what was the private sector doing? So private sector, unfortunately, is unable to do much, because when there is a minister and there is a government board around it, they also need to be involved, because there is some funding that the private sector also provides for it. So unfortunately, it hasn't happened the way it should.
There's no private sector involvement?
There is. There is.
Okay.
At the moment, there is. But it hasn't happened the way it ideally should be.
Why do you think that's the case? Is it because the private sector is not given sufficient space or to hear the private sector's concerns?
I think so, yes. It has. That's what has happened, and it has been kind of politicized over the years. So yeah, things haven't happened the way the private sector would have wanted. I mean, they've been asking for a marketing campaign for so long, but for whatever reason, it hasn't happened.
But it is said that millions were spent on campaigns and promoting Sri Lanka tourism outside the country, and among travel agents across the globe, especially after Sri Lanka even plunged into an economic crisis.
So I would say, I'm not saying nothing has happened in a way. So I think the tourist board spends a lot of money on attending travel fairs, which is important also. So the private sector also contributes, and then they will attend a travel fair and then promote the country. I think there's a lot of social media marketing that had happened, getting influencers and all of that. And we have had a lot of free publicity from the backpackers that we have had, because all the social media, getting the country ranked as the most, one of the best places to visit. I think has been done free for us by the people who have come, because the younger generation who have, they've made Ella and the train journey one of the best in the world. Not that we have done any promotion. It was all organic. So they have, that has also helped the country. But the thing is, we need to position the country. We need to have an image for the country. We have to build our image. And that has to be a conscious effort. It has to be spent. And all of us should be together making that happen. And that hasn't really happened over the last so many years. So if you ask, where is Sri Lanka positioned? I don't know. Is it a backpacker destination? Is it a high-end destination? Is it just a tourist destination? I don't know. So that's the sad.
Interesting you mentioned about backpackers and how organically Sri Lanka's the destination has been promoted and has won a number of accolades across the globe. Yeah. But we're also talking about why Sri Lanka should be positioned as a high-end tourist market and attract more high spenders, those who would spend more on the economy,
right,
on the industry. But how would you strike a balance here? You are managing a number of hotels which target high-end and also different segments.
Right. Yeah.
But how do you think Sri Lanka should strike this balance?
So I believe in value rather than volume. So if we can have, say, $5 billion or $10 billion as opposed 5 million tourists. So it doesn't matter the number of tourists that come. What we need is foreign currency, right? This country needs it desperately. And tourism is an amazing way. It's a very quick fire thing. Everybody says it's a low-hanging fruit, but we don't seem to be able to pluck the fruit, and then the government changes. So again, the whole wheel has to start all over again. But it is easily done if everybody has the passion and the will to do it. It can be done, and I hope we will be able to do it. For example, my brother always gives this example of, if you take an airline, whether it's Emirates, Qatar, Singapore Airlines, they will always advertise their business class or the first class. They may have only a fewer seats, but they advertise the best. But that doesn't mean the back end doesn't get filled up. But right. So the aspiration is there, and they see the plushness of the business class. But people do fill the back end also. So similarly, we have such a beautiful country. So much of it, it's fabulous. And the people, there's so much to talk about. So why not talk about all of that? And we have also some good products.
You travel often?
I love traveling.
Where do you travel most?
Locally and overseas, both I love.
In Sri Lanka?
Sri Lanka, I love the beaches. I love Yala. I like Sigiri. Whenever I have an opportunity, I love to travel.
If we are to attract high-end tourists or position Sri Lanka for that market, do you think we have the infrastructure, the facilities necessary to cater to that demanding market segment? Yeah,
we're not 100% ready, but the thing is, we will never be ready in that sense. And these are not big things that need to be done. Providing good toilet facilities. These are things that can be done if you take Sigiriya, Yala. Private sector is willing to do that. Provide nice washrooms, a nice area for people to sit around. So lots of things can be done. Take the airport. We don't have a foreigner section and a local section. We don't have a fast track at the airport. So if high-end tourists are coming, they'll need it, but it can be done. We can't say we don't have it and not advertise and get them to come, because these are things that can be done quickly.
But how come? as kids, we used to go to Sigiriya and have that issue, and maybe several decades after the issue, the lack of toilet facilities, we're still talking about it.
Yeah, it's very sad.
How come the private sector couldn't take the initiative to do it? There are many businesses that thrive, run on the industry itself, just as much as foreign earnings are brought through businesses that you run.
Absolutely.
Or other major stakeholders run. So I'm just trying to understand how the private sector couldn't come together, or whether there is a hand maybe stronger than the collective that is not allowing you to do that.
So the private sector companies, I know we have, and so many other companies have offered to do it. We have not been allowed. The associations, whether it is SLITO, the inbound tour operators, or the Hotels Association, There are regional hotels associations, they have offered. They have not been able to do it. So these are things that...
On the grounds of? On what grounds?
I suppose, it's always getting put off, and you're never given the okay to go ahead and do it. So yeah, or they'll say, no, we have the budget and we'll do it, but it's never done. So as you say, it's so many. I mean, I've been in this industry for 30 years now, over 30 years, and it's still the same. It just doesn't get done.
But even today, if there's approval, you're saying that the private sector would want to come forward
Definitely.
and make this thing happen?
Definitely, definitely.
Again, going back to the infrastructure, you said we don't need much to attract high-end tourists. You'd never be done, or you'd never be ready if you wait for that long. But what basic facilities, apart from the toilets to Yala and Sigiriya or other transportation facilities, what other, maybe what selling points, what is that edge Sri Lanka should develop or maybe market?
So, I mean, we have all the ingredients that are needed. So simple thing, as I said, other than that, the airport is a must. We need to have a very efficient airport and the facilities that go there. But other than that, we really have, we have local airlines that fly between. So maybe unfortunately, it comes to things like the railways, the buses. If we have a very good railway, maybe even a separate carriage where you charge more, and tourists are willing to pay. So I'm personally against having subsidized rates for foreigners in our public transport. But the thing is, I suppose you can't also have two levels of charging, one for locals and one for foreigners. But what we can do is give a higher quality product and charge more. So then somebody who wants to pay more and have a nice experience, a good toilet facility, at least start with that. And then there'll be people who will come. Now, if you want to go to Jaffna, and if you want to go in the train, people will be willing to go, but you need to give them a little more facilities to be able to enjoy it, because you can fly to Jaffna now. There are 2 or 3 airlines flying to Jaffna, and the road also is good. Yeah, so the infrastructure is really the must. If we have the highway going to Kandy, from Kadawatha to Mirigama, I mean, all these things will help. But generally, I think we have most of the things in place. With a little bit of tweaking, we can get there.
How much did the development process really support the industry, whether it's the highways or the connectivity that we've seen over the last decade or so?
It has helped tremendously, I must say. Really, I mean, for example, to go to Yala earlier, it took about 6 to 8 hours, and now you can do it in 3 to 4 hours. Even to go to Gaul, it took 4 hours, and now in 2 hours you can go there. So it really helped, and it's a pleasure to drive on the highways, and we have some beautiful highways. It's very picturesque. So all that helps, I think, rather than going in a European highway with just basically nothing on either side. We have it all.
We have it all, whether it's the beaches, the forests, the fauna, flora and fauna, the mountainous regions. But the question is Sri Lanka too small to do all this, to provide everything, attract? So that question, we know the Maldives, with small islands, they've targeted high-end tourists. But Sri Lanka's situation, how would you assess it? Are we too small to provide infrastructure, good facilities, separate facilities to pay a higher premium and obtain those facilities?
No, I don't think so, because of course we can't compare with Maldives, because Maldives by nature is a very private product. For example, it's one island, one resort. So people pay for privacy. I mean, if you want to go and then you want to be private, you go to Maldives, because nobody knows, nobody comes. They don't get hassled by beach vendors. So that's another product, and people are willing to pay. And there's a lot of foreign investment that has gone, but there's also a downside to it, because the majority of the people don't reap the benefits. Whereas in Sri Lanka, tourism is the fruits of tourism goes really down. I think about 5 million Sri Lankans benefit from tourism, not just a few companies or the employees in those companies. So that's the positive side of tourism in Sri Lanka. And to answer your question, no, we are a small country, yes, but it can be done if the bureaucrats and all the different, because tourism cannot be viewed in isolation. It requires the wildlife people, the cultural, the airport and aviation, the road authorities, the railways, all of them have to come together and have a united force to make Sri Lanka one of the best destinations in the world.
You talk about bringing everyone together, coordination, families is yours, and we have had major brands that have reached the world. The late legendary Meryl J. Fernando took Ceylon tea to the rest of the world, and we have more names as his. But why is Sri Lanka tourism not tapping the world market, just as some of these industries or some of these brands were able to represent not just tea but Sri Lanka as well?
Yeah, so to answer that, very unfortunately, for the last 30 years, every time, as I said before, every time we kind of get our act together, something happens. We've gone, I mean, we've had 2 insurrections in the 70s, 80s. We have had a civil war, and then we had the tsunami, and then we'd had the Easter bomb. I mean, over the 30 years, we've had so many things happening. But in spite of that, the fact that we are still alive and tourism industry is thriving is a huge testament to the people in the industry. So there are still people who are willing and who are believing in tourism. I mean, we as a family have invested heavily, and so many other companies like John Keells, Atkins Spence, and there are so many other individuals also who have invested a lot because we believe in the country. And I mean, we wouldn't do it if we didn't believe in it, and if we didn't position Sri Lanka as where it is now. Even in the past, when there was hardly any tourism dollars available, I mean, now we have a TDL and a tourism levy and whatever, but earlier there wasn't. But still, the country was marketed, and even now it is well known. All we need is a cohesive activity to position, market the country, because we don't have a good PR agency. There's a lot of things that are falling around. But if we had a good PR company, they could have really arrested all these.
Do you think we should hire a company overseas to take care of these matters?
It can be a local company with foreign affiliations, because you can't do everything being here. We need to open out. And if we can do that, yes, I mean, we have just come that much closer to appointing a company. You know, all the facilities, everything had been done, the briefs were given, the evaluations were done, but unfortunately, the final thing didn't happen over the last so many years.
The final thing being?
The selection of the agency just didn't happen. Once I think we came so close, everybody was brought in, the final list was made, but the government at that time didn't allow the committee that was involved. I think it was about 5 or 6 years ago.
And the reason being,
I think there were some local companies also who were agitating, saying it was not fair, that it was a foreign company that was asked. But the foreign companies were asked because they are the ones who have the reach to be able to go out and do all this. So it was a locally based foreign company, I think, that was to get it. But
a company that is able to reach markets.
Yes,
okay.
And had the experience in those markets as well.
Right. But before we go in for a short break, your personal opinion, what tagline really worked for Sri Lanka?
I really don't know. If you ask me, there are so many. They've had so many.
Anything.
Personally, I like small island. No, I think there was
small miracle. We had small. We had a land like no other. Yeah. We had a number of those.
Yeah, I don't think really the tagline matters. I mean, okay, like
but incredible India.
Incredible India was. I mean, everybody went behind it, and they believed in it, and they worked at it. And there was this. I think there was a minister who was really pushing it. Sadly, we haven't had that kind of commitment from anyone.
Ceylon tea, Ceylon cinnamon. Do you think the Ceylon, we should retain it?
Well, so that's again up to debate, but I think Sri Lanka is fine. I mean, we decided to change the name of the country, and let's go with Sri Lanka. I don't think it's that has mattered. It's just that concerted effort has not been made to do it.
Right. We'll take a short break. We're in conversation with the expert and tourism industry stakeholder Shiromal Cooray, speaking about the industry and how Sri Lanka could develop its tourism industry. We'll come back after the short break. We're in conversation with Chairperson and Managing Director of Jetwing Travels Private Limited, Shiromal Cooray, who's talking about Sri Lanka's tourism industry. Shiromal, I would like to maybe direct your attention towards the recent events, especially centering Arugambe, the travel advisories issued by the United States, the Embassy of the United States. Maybe create a lot of conversation in Sri Lanka, whether the country is safe for tourists. It came as a threat to some tourists visiting Sri Lanka, tourists of Israeli origin, and also warnings were issued that safety and precaution should be exerted across these parts of Sri Lanka. Has this dealt a blow on the industry as highlighted?
So, okay, let me answer it in different. So, I think it wasn't a travel advisory against visiting Sri Lanka. It was the US Embassy. This is what I have read and gathered, right? They got information that there was some threat to a particular to the Israelis and during a particular period of time, 19th to the 23rd, I think, of October, during a festival. So the government took proper action. When the government heard about it, they had been taking action, because we are aware, we have a hotel in Portugal, and the hotel was asked to inform the number of guests that are there.
This was before the
from about the 7th of October, yeah. Okay. So adequate precautions were being taken. But I think maybe it's the right of the US government, when they hear of something, they have to inform their countrymen who are in the country to take precaution. I mean, I would expect, for example, I'm going to London for the World Travel Market next week. And if there is a threat, I mean, there is always a threat in London, but if there's a specific threat, say at the Excel where the fair is going to be held, I would expect our embassy to tell me, there is going to be a bit of a threat, be careful. And that's something I'm expecting.
Sorry, I like how you said there's always a threat in London.
Always.
So regardless you travel.
Absolutely.
So, and in Sri Lanka we have had the Easter attacks.
Yeah.
And yes, you have ups and downs. But this situation really made us aware how sensitive the question of security is. Does the tourism industry, has the tourism industry taken this seriously and coordinating with the government to, or even in terms of building Sri Lanka's image, taking the word to the rest of the world, because word travels fast. Media talks about it, they pick on this and talk about it, whether it's neighboring India or elsewhere.
Yeah. So, which is why we need a good PR agency who can counter these kind of negative sentiments, and we don't have, unfortunately. But I think in this particular instance, we jumped the gun, because when a country advises its citizens of whether that is right or wrong, each High Commissioner or Ambassador knows what they should be doing or not doing. But the way we reacted, we were sharing it amongst all our social groups, our media highlighted it, because if, for example, as I said before, there's a threat in the UK for Sri Lankans, the UK press is not going to talk about it. When I remember going to London and to Berlin during the height of the LTT war, and Sri Lankans were targeted, but nobody cared about it. But we were aware, so our government did inform us. I think that's what a responsible government should do. And but the thing is, what we have to understand is we're a little fry in this whole thing. So there are certain things which we have to put up with, and we went through a lot of this during the war. There were travel advisories against traveling to Sri Lanka. We've been through all of that. So this ideally it should not have been, but for whatever reason the embassies decided to have it. But the thing is, we could have downplayed it. There was no need for us to talk about it, and then finally our media picked it up, and then international media picked it up, and now certain other countries, we've had cancellations as well. You know, some of the companies have had, and sadly, our Sri Lankan people stopped going to Arugambe. Nobody said there is a threat against Sri Lankans traveling to Arugambe. So I think we sometimes take these things out of proportion, and we play these things. You know, we also need to act a little more responsibly, without blaming the embassies, and because they have their own things to play. You know, the geopolitics involved and various things involved. But there are things that we can do as an industry, as a nation. And I think we have to be a little more responsible.
I understand when you say blown out of proportion. Again, this is the digital age. We have social media. We have, you could say, yes, the media spoke about it. Again, on social media, you have it sharing. So how can authorities be a little more responsible here? You can't stop an ordinary citizen from sharing such information. Again, media too will be talking about it, but whether it's the media authorities, what message do you have here really? Because this is about Sri Lanka, about the country you're talking about, while ensuring the safety of foreigners visiting Sri Lanka.
And the Sri Lankans.
And the Sri Lankans in the country. Just as much we have to take care of those visiting the outsiders, the Sri Lankan nationals as well. But again, about maintaining and building the image of Sri Lanka, which has had faced many storms.
So absolutely, that's what I'm going back to my thing of having a good marketing campaign, where we have to build the image, plus have a good PR company who, whenever there are these fallouts, they should be able to go out and say, because whether it's Egypt, I mean Thailand, even Maldives, these things happen. There are from time to time threats are coming, but they play it very well. They contact the international media, and they manage to balance things out.
So if Sri Lanka is to hire a PR agency, what percentage of, will the private sector contribute to it, or does this happen through the budget that all of you contribute to?
Yes, there's already a budget, there's a levy, there's a fund that has been collected, and which most of it has not been spent over the last couple of years. So it's there, it's all there. The briefs are there, the blueprints are there. We just need to select somebody and go with them.
So why can't the private sector push the government? Yes, people might think we're talking about the current government or the previous government. No, Abi was, you talk about government after government. But why is the private sector not pushing the government, holding it accountable for the monies that you contribute to a budget, and you say most of it is not spent? Or are you happy with what it has been spent on?
We're not. We've been pushing, we've been making a lot of noise, but unfortunately it hasn't happened. So we can only hope that the current government, because we have to work with the government in power, we are hopeful that that's what we've been hoping in the last so many years. We've hoped when a new government came, okay, this one is going to be different. So we are still living in hope.
The SMEs, we don't have much time, which is why I'm trying to speed through this conversation. But the SME, we talk about SMEs regardless of what industry, that they need to be strengthened, the engine of growth. We talk about, we name it and we give it a number of definitions. But the tourism industry, how important is SMEs? The SMEs also have had a number of challenges after Easter tax, paying up loans and trying to manage the moratorium. Whether the moratorium was actually effective or not is a question. But with all this, big players as you, forget about the government, but what can you do to protect the SMEs and help them grow, which will eventually support the industry?
So SMEs are a big part in tourism, because as I said, lots of experiences are handled by the SMEs, whether it's a boat safari or a cookery class. So lots of little things that are being done at different levels. So you mustn't forget that all of us started as an SME. Our company maybe 50 years ago started as an individual hotelier trying to build a hotel. So I think if somebody is committed, passionate, and runs the business efficiently, it can easily withstand a lot of storms. So I'm not putting down any SME, because as I said, we have been an SME, but I think they should be focused. They must understand that there is a business plan, you have to stick to it. When things are good, you need to put a little bit of money aside. So there are a lot of things, and lots of banks are now ready to help SMEs to restructure. So there's a lot of work that has been done. I think, and SMEs are important, as I said. We use a lot of SMEs in our supply chain, and a lot of them are very good, and they're playing a huge key role. And I think that will be the future. So a lot of facilities or services are available, but people.
But when crisis hits, do you think the SMEs are taken care of?
I think they are. I think they are. I think we can always complain about things, but we must also look at the positive things that are happening. And it's SMEs that are keeping this industry together, not a few 5 or 6 big companies. SMEs are playing a vital role in tourism.
What can we do to bring more women into tourism?
Lots need to be done. Internationally, about 50% of people in tourism are women. Unfortunately, in Sri Lanka, it's only 10%. So I think our society, their perception about women, plus also women in tourism. A lot of people think tourism is, not a nice industry for women to be in. So we have to change that perception. So we have started a program called Second Careers for Women, where we find people who are 45 and above. They have no one to report to. Husbands are dead or gone, or they don't have a father to report to. They are women who are now blossoming out, building careers. So there are ways we can also get them to come in. But I think the society norms, the thing that woman's place is in the house, that has to change, and men also need to accept women as an equal.
Tell us very quickly about the man in his time. And the Jetwing story.
Yeah, so that's like I'm sure for you as well, my dad is my hero. And I felt I had to write about his life and his thing. So he was a man who was a very simple man. He was a Marxist at heart. Fidel Castro was his idol. So my brother and I are following the same thing. So simplicity, humility, and then working with the community were things that he inculcated in us, which is why we are heavily into sustainability now. Way before it became a fashion, we were a sustainable company simply because of his values. He said we have to work with the community, we have to give back to the country from where we are getting. So those were values he inculcated in us, and he was a wonderful man.
As simple as you are, a positive woman, contributing positively to Sri Lanka's tourism industry, not just tourism, but the economy at large. Thank you once again for your time here and for the tremendous work that you do to bring women into the workforce and make women independent individuals in our society.
Thank you, Indy, and I really appreciate you and respect you being a woman and a fearless woman, bringing all these issues out. Congratulations to you too.
Humbled to hear those words from you. We were in discussion with Mrs. Shiromal Cooray, Managing Director and Chairperson of Jetwing Travels Private Limited, tourism industry stakeholder, an expert in economics and tourism and business, of course. We'll see you again next week with yet another discussion here at Hyde Park. Have a pleasant evening. Good night.